don't
have anything to do.
I don't know. I mean, I would assume anything on it to do with it.
Jen, can you figure out where that's coming from?
I already did.
All right, so it's a little after 10. We have Brian Daniels and Dotty Pascal here. Brian, you wanted, the focus of this meeting is on the non-entitlement distributions. I have a couple of things afterwards for this special Wednesday call. Brian, you want to start off?
Sure. Yes. Thank you, Peter. Just want to thank you all for doing this on a different day. We want to accommodate Dottie's calendar. She's, as you know, probably very busy right now dealing with all the American Rescue Plan distribution. There's a lot of information that I know she's going to go through, and there's a presentation that we can send out after. I just want to remind you of a few things as Dottie gets staffed up. If you could channel questions through the league. So if you have any questions for me, I can compile those and send them to Dottie. And as you can see in the presentation today, she's actually responding to some of the ones that came in. So that's helpful. And this is also a way of making sure that that everyone gets the same information. And then also there's some additional guidance that came out from Treasury, some frequently asked questions. Those were updated, I think, earlier this week. So I think Peter's going to send those around in the summary. So just take a look at those as well. So that's all I had. And also just want to thank Dottie again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, everybody. And I want to just say, I appreciate you accommodating my calendar call today, which I know is not in your normal rotation. I'm going to share my screen in a moment. As Brian mentioned, we have been bombarded with guidance this week. We got both additional guidance on the local fiscal recovery funds, the state fiscal recovery funds generally, and also the non-entitlement unit distributions, which I'll talk about in a moment. So bear with me and I will share my screen with everyone. So can you all see this slide deck? Yes, no, maybe?
No.
No.
Can't see it. All right, let me try again. How about now?
Dottie, I also have it. Oh, here it comes.
It'll come. All right. Let me make it bigger. Better?
Yep.
Okay, so let's get started. So I set up just a quick agenda so that we can follow along. I will share this, this shared slide deck will be shared out. I will also post it on our website. So I want to talk about the NEU distributions in general, the guidance. And then as Brian mentioned, I did have some questions that were submitted ahead of time. So I'm going to provide you with some answers. So as you all know, the local fiscal recovery funds, we have about 537 million, of which the state will be dispersing about 260 million out. We are basing this on population and population only, and population that the Census Bureau supplied to us. Treasury gave us the population numbers that we are to use. We didn't go find these on our own, just so everyone understands that. I did post on the OMB website. So if you go to omb.ri.gov, click on the pandemic recovery link on the top, and then scroll down the screen on the bottom, you'll see a tab that says ARP policies and guidance. Click on that tab. You will see an Excel spreadsheet that shows the county distribution amounts and the non-entitlement unit distribution amounts. Those are the amounts you can budget for.
Can you repeat that website one more time, please?
Sure, it's right here on the bottom of the slide, omb.ri.gov/pandemic-recovery. One thing I want to, before I move forward, one thing I want to note is because we're basing the distribution of funds on population, percentage of population to the total, the state cannot put any conditions or any restrictions on the use of these funds. We are just simply a funnel for US Treasury. US Treasury just on the call last week said, we don't really want to be bothered with distributing thousands money to thousands and hundreds of thousands of local governments. We're just going to use the cities and towns to do that for us. So you will be responsible for compliance. You will be responsible for reporting. And you will be responsible for setting your own policies around this money. We will help you, but we can't do it for you. It's not allowed. So the local fiscal recovery funds distribution to the NEU specifically, the guidance states that the municipality must request the funds. We had a question, I think early this morning, Steve Coleman fielded a question. I'm not sure who it was from. They asked, why do I have to do this paperwork if I'm getting the funds directly? If you receive the money directly from US Treasury, you are a metropolitan city, you're one of the 6, you do not have to do this package. They had a different process. They went directly onto the US Treasury site and signed up. If you are the remaining 33, you have to do this package. We tried to make it, keep it simple, stupid. Anytime you enter your locality name, it will automatically populate through all the funds for you. Once you set up your authorized representative name, it will populate it through all the funds for you. So if you have any questions, you can reach back to your Division of Municipal Finance analyst. I know Steve put out an email right before this call laying out the process for this package.
Will this include the county funds also?
I'm not sure how they want us to distribute the county funds. I know the amount, but I don't know the process yet. They haven't given us any guidance. So I can't say.
You understand, Dottie, that 6 of us don't really care about this because all we're waiting for is the county part of it.
Yes, I understand that.
And didn't the act say within 60 days the federal government had to distribute the county entitlement, the same as the,
Yes,
but the state has not received the county entitlement. Is that accurate?
that is accurate.
All right, thank you.
This is Brian. I wanted to chime in on that. Just a reminder that Rhode Island is one of the very few states that have this county distribution. The language we worked on with the National League of Cities and the New England Municipal Leagues essentially says that if you have counties, non-functioning counties, then the state will distribute it on a per capita basis. So the Treasury's goal right now is to get the money out to most of the counties that are functioning counties. And they have, to a certain extent, deprioritized these. So that's one of the reasons we're seeing a little bit of a delay on that.
So that still will go through the state. The state will receive the county money, because if we have no county governments, who do they send it to?
Correct. The state will receive the money similar to the non-entitlement units, and then we will turn around and distribute it according to the guidance as required. I don't know if they'll require a request packet or not. That's really what we're waiting to find out. So following up on the non-entitlement distribution, there's just a couple of things. You must attest to the accuracy of the documents that require, the guidance requires that, and the authorized representative must sign all the forms. I want to move into the guidance generally and give you just kind of an overview of what was and what is. So under the Corona Relief Fund, we had a presumption of health and safety benefit employees where they were just presumed eligible. We had the effects of a COVID as broadly defined, and the funds, of course, have to be expensed by the end of this calendar year. Under the ARP, key, and I have questions of this from the group, there is no presumption of eligibility for health and safety workers. You are only allowed to reimburse or dedicate ARP funds to those salaries to the extent they're dedicating their time to responding to COVID-19. And that is a huge limitation. Also, ARP is not broadly defined. You must hit this 3-pronged justification, and these are all and statements, not or statements. You have to identify a direct harm that came from the pandemic. You have to show the effect of that harm, a direct effect of that harm to your municipality, to your operations. And then you have to show how your initiative is responding directly to that harm. This is tight. And we're struggling with this. And because this is verbal, I'll say it. You're going to have to learn creative writing. I mean, it's hard.
So I have a question. Part of this money I can use for revenue replacement, correct?
So the part of the money that you calculate is your revenue loss is
Yeah.
considered government services. They consider that money for government services. Government services money can be used for revenue replacement.
So if I have, I mean, we've done some rough calculations. We can eat up most of our funds based on lost revenue. So then I don't have to worry about so much of this other stuff. I mean, you know,
Correct.
I like to avoid work whenever I can.
Correct. Yeah, the government services classification under this fund is very flexible. It's the most flexible piece of money. And the more you can get in there, the better off you are.
Well, at the 4.1% growth rate, that's what, I mean, most of us communities aren't growing at that rate. So if I use the 4.1, I can pretty much eat up all this money.
Yep, it's very generous.
In line with that thinking, because the state supplemented the pilot money with the CARES Act, can we say that that is lost revenue?
I don't know what the pilot money is, so you're gonna.
Oh, I'm sorry, the state aid money.
Oh,
So
okay.
that they used, instead of distributing this various state aid, they substituted the COVID funds, and then we submitted justification using that presumption of health and safety workers. So my thought was that perhaps that would be a justified revenue loss, because previously, until I just heard that, we were thinking that infrastructure projects would be an easy use of these funds. And now I'm not sure how you can say that, you know, a stormwater project was caused by COVID, or there's a direct harm, or in the, you know, I'm not seeing that.
So when you calculate your general.
All the extra tissue. Sorry.
When you calculate your general revenue, and it's a question later in the slide deck, on page 56 of the guidance in the interim final rule, it says general revenue includes, added in, intergovernmental transfers between state and local governments. So if you got fewer dollars from the state, then yes, you would have a general revenue loss.
I'd be careful,
Dotty.
Julie. Just remember.
Hey, guys, let me
just-
get through a lot of this deck because I think I'm going to answer a lot of your questions as I move through.
All right.
Okay. I'm going to go to the next one. So because people learn differently, I tried to present some of the same information in different formats. So this slide gives you just a quick overview, high-level summary of what you can and cannot use the funds for. And this is the local fiscal recovery fund. This is not the general services revenue loss calculation piece. So this is the rest of the money. If you have any of the rest of the money left. No pension contributions, no rainy day contributions. No restrictions from the state.
Have they provided clarity on,
I'm sorry, Jim?
I declare, hello?
All right. So one of the things that is eligible for the local funds that is not eligible for the state fund is the locals are allowed to use their share of their local fiscal recovery funds to offset a net tax revenue change. So if you reduce property taxes, you can use this money to backfill it. If you do a change in the motor vehicle tax, you can use this money to backfill it.
But we can't do a change in the motor vehicle tax set by state law. So
Yeah, I know. But I'm just throwing ideas out there, Peter. I understand, but I'll let you know there are conversations in the ledge about changing this. and forcing you to backfill. So that's why I happened to mention it. I was kind of putting you on notice a little bit without being too much in your face.
Could
That was-
just on that same part with motor vehicle, because we're changing the exemptions due to the phase out, could we back that in? Well, I don't know, because we get it from the state. I'm just thinking off.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I need to have legal counsel research that more for me, and I've assigned it to them, but I haven't gotten an answer back because it's not an easy question to answer. According to this act, it's a little convoluted. Other pieces that you must premium pay for essential workers. Essential workers are people who are not remote, physically at risk by their essential work. And I'll get into that more later. And remember, you always have to tie into a negative economic impact. And a lot of this guidance focuses on equity. There's a lot of focus on equity in using the money to bring disadvantaged locations up. So if you can tie into those kind of thoughts, your justification for use becomes a little stronger. Also remember, the funds must be obligated between March 3rd of 21 and December 31st, 2024. So if you're thinking longer term projects, you need to have contracts executed, numbers tight, obligated at December 31st, 2024, but then you have 2 more years to actually make the payments and close the project.
So can I just ask a quick question here? On the premium pay for essential workers, that one goes back to January of 2020, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's an exception. So everybody's been asking about what is general revenue, and this was updated with the guidance that dropped on June 7th. And if you haven't read those frequently asked questions, I'm going to suggest that you do. I've also posted them up on our website. I know Peter's going to put them out. I know Peter probably read them. But the US Treasury basically said, we made a mistake. We can't let you tie into the Census Bureau calculations because the Census Bureau pretty much won't tell us how they got the numbers. We can't tie to their numbers, quite frankly, at the state level. We've been asking a lot of questions. They told us it was proprietary information. So we all pushed back on Treasury, and Treasury came out with this new guidance about general revenue. So they're saying conceptually, you should follow the Census Bureau. General revenue from own sources. So I noticed the GFOA spreadsheet that Peter circulated around, which is an excellent tool, and it incorporates everything on this slide. So as long as you follow that tool that Peter sent out to everybody, I think you'll be fine in your calculation. One thing, you have the choice. I'm sorry, Peter, go ahead.
Dotty, you're talking about the GFOA that, and that was Kathy Raposa in Barrington sent that out. But is that what we're talking about?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
And if anybody doesn't have a membership, I'll forward you the spreadsheet.
Just so you know, Dotty, our controller here had done something even before we saw the GFOA. I sent it to Kathy. I think it's more helpful. I feel it's really helpful, and I might share it with 2 or 3 other communities to test. It does more or less the same thing as the GFOA. Kathy's got a copy of it. I don't know if she's looked at it yet, but I might, at the end of the meeting, I might try to get 2 or 3 volunteers to test it out.
Good idea. So the only caveat around that is once you pick a tool, that's the tool you have to use for all 4 years. You must be consistent in the tool, and you must be consistent in what choice you use for your base financial information. Are you using cash? Are you using accrual? Or are you using modified accrual? And I would suggest that you write this up and document it and keep it with your calculation spreadsheet every year, so that should somebody come knock on your door, you have that you are consistent across the 4 years in your calculation. We will be doing the same. revenue loss provisions in the ARP are a mess. Just simply saying, we're struggling with this, and we're struggling with this, and it's going to affect Lincoln and Tiverton. We're struggling with this because Rhode Island is the only state that owns the lottery. So we're not certain if we treat the lottery as a tax, according to the guidance. Do we treat it like other states treat liquor stores that they own and follow that ruling? Or do we treat it as if we were an American Indian reservation that owns a casino? Like, we have reached out to Treasury last night, and we're hoping to have an answer. And when I have that answer, I will answer the question. I believe it was from either Lincoln or Tiverton about, you know, do we count the state share in our revenue loss calculation? I can't answer that question until I know how we're treating it at a state level, because it'll just flow down.
So are we just looking at general fund, or do we look at the whole, or how do the enterprise funds and all those type of things, are they all treated as separate entities
No.
in a way for the calculation?
No, it's a holistic look. It's a high level look down across everything. You shouldn't
So
say.
if my rec's an enterprise fund, shut it down, that you know, those type of things will all help me into my calculations.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Dottie, John Ward from Lincoln here. You mentioned the casino, the revenue off the casino. Is because the state owns the VLT machines, is that not to be considered intergovernmental revenue?
I don't know. It depends on how Treasury classifies it with us. But I would assume for you, it's an intergovernmental transfer. But I don't want to make that assumption until we get buy-in. If it's considered a tax, it might be a little different. We're trying to push Treasury.
Easier.
Not from my side of the fence.
Oh, it would be worse. Okay, I just because that, effectively, that's essentially the only major. That's the revenue that's been affected mostly. Most other times were only minimally affected, if anything.
Exactly. And on a state
But
level,
it's substantial.
On a state level, how we define this, if it goes as a tax or if it goes as if we treat it as a state-run liquor store, is about a $200 to $300 million swing at the state level. This is a huge issue. And that will just flow down to your city and your town.
And I will wish you success.
Yeah, keep your fingers crossed. We want it to be a liquor store. Does anybody have any other questions on this slide? One of the things that was asked is the revenue loss, you know, do we have to tie it to an effect of COVID? The answer to that is no, it is presumed to be an effect of COVID. So you don't have to write anything or do anything on that issue. So here are the question and answers I had previously. Will you receive the funds in 2 tranches? That is a yes for both the non-entitlement and the county money. So for non-entitlement, we received the money last Monday, which means you will receive the money by the first week of July, provided I receive your request package by June 15th. Now, what's not on the answer to this question is that if you do not provide the state with the request package by June 25th, your share of the money gets reallocated to the remaining 35 cities and towns. The state doesn't get to keep the money. We reallocate it back out. So please make note of June 15th if you want the money by the first day of your fiscal year, or June 25th is the drop dead date to get the money at all. I will be reallocating on June 30th. There is no wiggle room in these dates, and those who know me know I keep to my deadlines. So I know I'm tight on the June 15th deadline. I will do whatever I can possible, me and my team, to help you get those documents back to us by June 15th. If you cannot make June 15th, you must email in a request to an extension. Do not assume you have an extension. If I do not hear from you, you will be reallocated. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about that timeline?
Right, but
Yes.
those dates do not apply to the county entitlement. You don't know
No,
what the dates are yet.
Correct. This is NEU only.
All right, thank you.
Why is the funding being reallocated? Why isn't it being returned? Is that a state requirement? Is that a federal requirement?
Federal requirement. It's in the guidance in the IFR. I have to reallocate. If I don't reallocate it by so many days, I have to give it back. So we're not giving back federal money. It's a non-issue.
So once we submit, you'll provide us some sort of confirmation that we submitted, because,
Absolutely.
yeah, okay.
And that only applies to the smaller cities and towns, not the Providence, Woonsocket, Warwick, right?
Providence, Warwick, Woonsocket, East Providence, Newport, Cranston receive their money directly from the federal government. They don't come through the funnel, through the state. They're on their own. They had to do their documentation with the state. They had to apply on the through the feds. They had to apply through the Fed portal. They had an entirely different process than the remaining 33. Sorry. It's a long morning. Next question is about infrastructure projects, a senior community center, a public safety facility complex, and roads and sidewalks. So you're not gonna like my answer, and it's pretty much generally none of those fit the requirements of ARP for an infrastructure project. There is a big focus on clean water, sewer, broadband. They're pushing us in those areas. Someone followed up and said, what if the community or the senior center was in a qualified census tract? Development in a qualified census tract for infrastructure is allowable if it's improving the equity and the economic development in the area. So if you can justify the community center into those two areas, you got a piece of string to hang on, but it's your call how much risk you want to take in the expenditure of these funds. And remember, justification of these projects should always require an identification of the harm and effect of the harm and how this project responds to the harm. As long as you stay consistent in your methodology and pick up those three key pieces of the justification under audit, you have a better chance of non-recoupment, of keeping the funds, of being in acceptable use. Does anybody else have a question? Sure.
Question. In regards to what you just said, that if we can somehow meet this three-pronged justification, then the project potentially would be approved and whatnot.
That's your decision. I'm just telling you, I cannot, remember, I am restricted on, they've put me in a box. I cannot give you restrictions or considerations on this money. So I'm skating lines here with everybody.
I get it.
Opinion?
Is there someone or some agency or something that before we go spend $20 million on a renovation project or whatever, and we've got our justifications, that you apply to some agency that would bless it or not?
No, it's your money, you decide.
So I have a kind of a related question. The schools are getting their own money. And I know with a lot of stuff, we have to sign off as the finance directors on school expenditures. Are we signing off on the school expenditures that are, that they're using this money properly? Or is that out of, I don't want to be in the paper of something the school did.
I hear that. So the money that is flowing through Rhode Island Department of Education into the LEAs, those are direct federal awards, even though the funding was authorized under ARP, they have different rules than what I'm talking about here. They have very specific rules.
Yeah, through the Acela grant programs and stuff, but I don't get into that battle like with the schools. You can't do that. Well, we think we can, but we need your signature. Kind of like maintenance of effort or some of those type of things.
Yeah, exactly. So what we do on the OMB state side, because we require RIDE to come in and present their initiatives and including their federal direct awards and how they're funneling the money out and the reason why. And we have them attest that they understand the guidance of the direct federal award and that they will comply with all the rules, regulations, and compliance requirements. And maybe you just add a little sentence onto whatever document they give you to sign. So then you have a hat and a nail that you can hang on the wall. I mean, that's what we're doing. It's a little difficult because the direct federal awards have very nuanced eligibility requirements and other requirements like maintenance of effort, like maintenance of equity. That's a new one under the ESSER funds. So, you know, we can't, as finance people, we can't know every single program rule. So you need to rely on your people, but you can also have them sign to show you did your due diligence. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about infrastructure? Okay, I'm gonna go to the next one. And I mentioned this earlier, public safety presumed eligible for ARP are the new restrictions. No, they are not presumed eligible. Yes, there are new restrictions.
Dottie,
So-
I just have a quick question from the prior slide. I'm sorry to interrupt. What is a QCT? What's a QCT?
So a QCT is a qualified census tract of an identified disadvantaged community. If you Google US Census QCT tract, you'll get a Rhode Island map and you can see them.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Could you please speak to the roads also mentioned in the previous slide?
So roads are excluded. So if you're doing work on a road with your local fiscal recovery fund, it is an allowable use. Sidewalks are not mentioned, they're not an allowable use. So public safety people, again, only up to the portion of the employee's time that is dedicated to responding to the public health emergency. You are required to document the dedication of their time, either in a timesheet or in payroll records. The state has actually rolled out a new payroll code for ARP to capture employees' time so we can see what the level of effort is against the employee's time to the overall unit. And then maybe if we have leftover money, maybe we'll appropriate some money for salaries and benefits. But it's tight. It's not just like, oh, this is the police department's entire cost and I'm gonna backfill that with COVID money. No longer allowed. They have to document how many hours of their day, week, month that they're dedicating to a COVID response.
So does this matter if I applied under FEMA for any of the reimbursements?
Not double dip.
I'm sorry, say that again, Dottie?
You cannot, what we call double dip.
So if we've already applied for FEMA funding, then we would only use this from a going forward basis.
Unless FEMA rejects you.
So if FEMA rejects us, then we would then apply these funds, because this goes back to March of 20?
Correct.
Goes back to March of 20. Okay, thank you.
We have a lot of overlap between FEMA, CRF, and ARP.
Okay.
And you need to keep track of what bucket you're putting your expenditure in so you don't double dip.
Okay.
So another question came up about premium pay, and can a lump sum payment be made to frontline workers? Does it need to be administered as an hourly addition to wages? So this was actually addressed in 2 different FAQs, and I've referenced them here for you. But the rule, regulation and rule states that premium pay is up to $13 per hour in addition to the regular wage. And the aggregate amount cannot exceed $25,000 per worker. But that doesn't mean you can't do a calculation and send a lump payment. It's how you determine the amount that is important, not how you physically pay the employee. So you can pay them an extra $13 an hour for a period of time. You can pay them all, you can do a calculation and pay them all at once. Just you need to keep your documentation, keep your justification, That's it. Does that answer that question? I'm not sure who asked that question.
This is Brian Dotty. Actually, this came from one of the CEOs, and it was a question as to whether or not all municipal, anyone who's been a frontline worker, could you do the same amount of payment or the same lump sum payment to every person, irrespective of what the base wage was. So if you have, a junior clerk and a senior clerk, can you give them the same lump sum, or does it have to be tied to the base? It has to be tied to the hourly wage.
You have to calculate on $13 an hour. So like if you decide you're going to pay everybody an additional, 100 hours, they get a gross $1,300 payment. You just document that that was your decision. You identify these people as the essential workers who fall into the guidance rules, and this is how you're going to pay them and pay them.
So essentially, because you're doing, $2 or $5 or $10 an hour times however many hours, they can all get the same amount because they all went up by the same hourly wage. Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Oh. Any other questions on that one? Okay. So cybersecurity, can we use the money for cybersecurity? No, unless it's tied to a water or sewer infrastructure. However, you can use your government services money for cybersecurity. You can use your government services money for any government service you want to improve or add or backfill. So
if I have utility, if I'm running a utility of water and sewer based on current situations with ransomware, would that qualify then?
Because it's water or sewer related and it's only in the water or the sewer, yes.
Just remember, Jim, as Dottie said at the beginning, she's only distributing the money. I think she's given us good guidance on what is likely to be the qualifications by US Treasury, but she's not going to be making that determination.
No, and I'm really honestly thinking more of my council people, because they've been asking all sorts of odd requests of what they could use it for.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, are the CEOs getting this same information? Like this blunt, this can't use it on this, can't use it on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to make sure. And maybe there should be something put together for, like Jim said, our town councils, our city councils, our school committees.
So let me tell you what's happening in my office, because this may help you. I am hiring 2 people. One is an analyst who will be dedicated to municipalities only. And when I say that, I mean, this is going to be your point of contact. He or she, I haven't finished interviewing yet, will be a roadie, or is what I call a roadie. If you need them to go out and talk to somebody about the guidance, they're going to go. If you have questions, if you want to do cross-location projects, this person is going to help you coordinate. Make sure we plug in all the right state people. Make sure we plug in all the right local people to get it done. That's one hire. A second person I'm hiring is another legal counsel who's going to specialize in education and municipal eligibility under ARPA, because that in and of itself is a job over and above all this other ARPA stuff. So you will have access to those 2 resources. And as soon as I onboard them, you will have their name, contact, cell phone. Okay, that make everybody feel a little bit better? I'm trying to give you as much support without crossing the lines. So, can we support part-time employees hired to manage the technical components of the hybrid meetings and other personnel costs unallowable use under ARPA? The answer is no, you can't pay these people out of ARPA. And I will also let you know that we went on a really piece of thin dental floss to get the funding for that equipment qualified. So, we can only push the envelope so far here. So that one is a definite no. However, your government services fund can fund those people. May ARP be invested? Yes. Are there any conditions how the interest and investment gains are handled? Yes, they must be reallocated into the program. So that money doesn't become general fund. It keeps the color of ARP attached to it and the restrictions of the guidance.
Dotty, this is Bob Strong from Cranston. I have a
Hi, Bob.
question. How are you? I have a question, and I think you just alluded to it. The interest that can we generate interest income from the money that we received directly from the feds? And if we can, that interest that we generate, that can be used for projects or to offset some of the COVID expenses?
As long as it meets the requirements of the ARP guidance, that's where the investment earnings can be used.
Okay, so that would be the same guidance for the money we got directly anyway, right? So it would just be adding on to that, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So if you got $100 million and you have $10,000 of investment earnings, you have $100 million, $10,000 of ARP money.
Right.
Okay.
And it's all going to be isolated. It has no effect to the general fund. It's isolated to, we have it
Correct.
into like reserve fund for these expenditures or projects, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Are ARP funds subject to normal budget, local budget requirements? Can municipal executives administer the funds directly as with CRF? I can't answer this for you because it's specific to each entity's municipal law and jurisdiction. The Corona relief funds were administered by the governor because of the executive order of an emergency. We are now moving into recovery, not emergency, recovery. So the state legislature will be appropriating all of the state state fiscal recovery funds, including the appropriations we have to funnel out to the cities and towns. So I'm not sure how to answer this question because I'm not familiar with your specific laws. So unfortunately, I give you a non-answer. State funding reductions are listed as qualifying. Oh, we spoke about this earlier with the lottery. As soon as we have an answer from Treasury, which I'm hoping to be later next week, I will come back to number 9 and get back to Lincoln and Tiverton directly. And that's all I had for questions ahead of time. Does anybody have any other questions for me? I do have a hard stop in 10 minutes because I have to present to the state CFOs, but I'm more than willing to take any questions for the next, 6 minutes.
So this is Leslie McGovern, the finance director in the town of Barberville. I can ask a quick question. Looking back at the coronavirus local physical recovery fund municipal estimates that we received, they had those broken out into 2 sections, the 603B2 and the 603B3. It totaled about 4.9 million between the 2 of those. When I just went out and looked at the new estimates that were provided in the total amounts due to cities and town, NEU, and the counties, they have 2 sets of numbers there. One says total amount for Barberville, which is 3.3, and the other one says tranche at the bottom for 1.6. Can you tell me, are those the 2 separate payments we're going to get and we add the 2 together, or is the total amount the total we're getting and the tranche is the first portion of it? Can you explain that? Because if I add the 2 numbers together, go ahead.
No. So the total amount is the total due to the city and town for both tranches.
Okay.
So you get 50% now, and you get 50% no earlier than 12 months from July. That is the wording directly from US Treasury. No sooner than 12 months. So it's 50-50. So I'm trying to show you the total so you know how to budget and let you know you're getting 50%.
Understood. It's just the two numbers were pretty close to the two numbers before. I mean, Bargle went down from about 4.9 million to 3.3. So that's a significant drop from what the original estimate was. That's all.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Dotty,
Welcome.
Dotty, this is Denise from Tiverton. Can you hear me all right? Hello?
I can.
I think this question has already been pretty much answered, but I'm just going to confirm. So this packet that we're filling out and is due on June 15th is for the municipal side only.
Yes.
Versus
the
school.
non-entitlement unit.
Right.
Correct.
But
the school
town-
money does not come through the
Okay.
OMB. It goes directly from RIDE to the LEA to the school districts.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
I have a question. This is Diane from Westerly. Could I ask you a question? When we do the budget part of this, it says all funds. So I just want to make sure we're including our enterprise funds in that?
Yes.
Okay, so it's all the budgets for all the funds. So it would be only funds that actually have budgets, because we have funds that do not have budgets. We wouldn't include those.
The best way I can phrase that is, whatever you deliver to the Division of Municipal Finance as your budget, that's what we're taking.
The budget, okay, all right. The only other question I have is the report that's in the pandemic file that you send the link to. I'm trying to understand the document because there's a total amount due and then there's a tranche, but it's not connected to a town name. I'm not sure how to read this.
Oh, hold on. That's bad.
I think it's just.
No, that's bad. Are you kidding?
That's the way the file was saved, I think, but it's hard to see the two.
I'm trying to pull it up so I can. I'll get that fixed.
Okay, all right. I know it's a 50-50, but I just want to make sure I'm reading it correctly.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up now.
A question, please. Just maybe it's a Brian question. I'm not sure which, but where will we find the recording of this meeting after it is over?
I'll share it out with Peter when he sends the notes.
I think that's important, Jen, because it's going to be impossible to put a one-page summary together of all the things she's gone over. So it'd be helpful if I can give everyone a link to a recording.
Yeah, and I think the expression of some of the cautions and the limitations of the state response and choices made by local communities by Dotty are important to have people be able to hear, because it can become a very subjective application when we get to that point. Thank you.
So I will get this amounts due PDF fixed and reposted today.
Thank you.
Thank you for telling me that. I didn't even pick up on that.
Hey, this is Kathy from Barrington. I have a question when we're comparing our revenues. Are we supposed to use March of 19 through December 31st of 19 compared to March 20 through December 31st of 20 for the first year?
I actually have to pull the papers and look that up because I don't want to give you the wrong dates. Hold on.
If you look at the GFOA calculator, it's actually using the last full fiscal year, June 30th, 2019 numbers, and then your comparison goes to calendar year 2020 for your first comparison.
Right, but I just wanted to make sure that that was correct since everything's referencing March of 20.
No, that's to expend the funds, not to calculate your revenue loss.
Yeah, that's the qualifying
Two
expense.
different. Right. Whoever gave you the dates, they're right.
We believe there's a flaw in that calculator in that it does not give you the flexibility to use either 19 or 20 as the base year, which the regulations seem to do. So there are.
Well, there's also the fact that in the interim rule, it seemed to indicate through their guidance, that your first measurement would be an 18-month period, which would be your fiscal year plus 6 months to December 31st, 20, where this calculator seems to deal with just one calendar year. So I don't know which of those is the correct use of the calculation.
Hold on, I'm looking it up. That came through on an FAQ. I'm just trying to find the right one. So why, you guys don't walk around with the Bible like I do? Come on. This is crazy. So here it is, May 27th, FAQ 3.4. What is the time period for estimating revenue loss? Will revenue losses experienced prior to the passage of the act be considered? Recipients are permitted to calculate the extent of revenue reduction as of 4 points in time: December 31st, 20, 21, 22, 23. This approach recognizes that some recipients may experience lagged effects of the pandemic on revenues. That's all it says. And it says base year. That's it. Base year is general revenue collected in the most recent full fiscal year prior to the health emergency. So that would be fiscal 19. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, we may have further conversations on this. I think you also have the authority to use fiscal year 20 if it's to your advantage. But I want to discuss that with in-house here a little bit. For example, I mean, rescue service fees, we make out better using fiscal year 20 as the base. All the others, 19 is the best year for us, so.
All right. I have to drop. Does anybody have any other questions before I run? If not, please email them to the league and we'll stop funneling them out again.
I have a quick question. Is it still revenue by revenue basis, not in total? So like Peter was just saying, rescue fees for 20, but yet taxes maybe for 19.
I don't know how to answer your question, truthfully, because I don't understand what you're asking me.
So in total, if our revenues haven't changed that much, but yet they were hit because say we received more in building fees, but less in meals and beverages, can we?
It doesn't, no, you have to look at all sources. It's a holistic look to calculate the general revenue loss. So
Except,
the guidance is
except that if you've had an increase, for example, I know that we've had, real estate transfer fees have gone up, but under the regulations, you can record zero. You don't have to net that against your losses. The regulations are clear that in a circumstance like that, you do not record a gain over the 4.1%. You enter zero.
Asking. That's what I was asking. So it's revenue by revenue basis that equals, okay. So increases are zero and losses are considered losses. So you don't have to net the increases against.
That's my we went over this a lot. I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Thank you.
Saying that. But
all right,
Kelly, I'll call you if I'm wrong.
Oh, please do, because I'm going to be using that.
I'm going to drop, guys, but please funnel any other questions over to the league and we'll do our best to answer. And once I have the people onboarded, I will funnel out through the league all the contact information that you need. Thank you for taking time with me today. And I look forward to working very closely with all of you as we get this money spent in the best way possible for all of us. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dottie.
All right. We've already talked about, I had couple of other things on the agenda. Revenue replacement calculator, and we've talked about that a fair amount. I guess people are already using the GFOA calculator. We put one together here. Kathy Raposa has it, Bob Strom has it. I might send it out to a couple of others. If people are comfortable with the GFOA calculator, I'm not going to try to sell something that I'm pretty comfortable with, that Jason Parmalee here put together. But I might send it to a couple of you just to test, because I think it does help you on the base year issues. What is the base year? The only other thing I had was, and which I talked about earlier, the timing on the county entitlement distribution, because that's the one, and Brian's given a good explanation, that we're kind of, it's the New England places that are affected by this. I did notice Steve's, and Brian, I assume you'll reach out to us when you or Dotty, when you hear what the timing on that is. I guess all of us will be thinking about the 60-day window for financial reporting. So, and we just like to know, because we've got budgets in place that are based upon receiving at least receiving two components. One, the non-entitlement communities, which we just discussed, then the entitlement communities what received, and everyone, all 39 are going to get some share of this county entitlement. So we need some guidance on that. So just talk about, I think this has been helpful. I thought maybe I'd try to book something Tuesday, 13 days from now, going back to 10 o'clock, just to put on your schedule. And I'll send something out to that effect when I post my summary, which will be incomplete because it really is not possible to cover. But Jen and I will work on trying to find you a link to, I have the slides, I believe, and that's the most important part. So you'll be getting those slides.
This is Brian. I just wanted to mention, I think if you do a call, I think 13 days would be the 22nd. That would be good. Dotty is presenting. Joanna wisely asked, are the CEOs getting this presentation as well? Yes. Dotty will be presenting to the CEOs on the 17th, next Thursday, on the lead call. So that'll give us another opportunity to get some more questions. So maybe by the 22nd, we'll have additional answers from things that have come up since then. So just wanted to give you a time frame of when that's happening. There was a brief presentation that the CEOs got last Friday. It was not nearly in this level of detail. That's why we're doing another follow-up call on the 17th.
I have a question, Peter, just for clarity. The OMB link that was shared, is that both pots of money? That the NEU and the county? I'm just wondering because that went up 2.9 from 1.5 million. So I almost doubled. I'm just curious.
I think because of that formatting of that page is a little difficult. I'll ask if Dotty can get that information out. I know that they have the NEU numbers right now. I don't know if they put out county guidance yet. So because I know she needs to clarify that page. If we can, I'll ask her to see if she can put some explanation as to what it represents as well.
Yeah, because that's almost doubled. So I'm just curious. Okay, thanks.
There were some communities from the NEU numbers that did go up. Some metro communities went down. And so just because of US Treasury guidance, so we did have some reductions in the metro communities, and the numbers that I saw, some of the non-entitlement units went up, but I don't think anyone went up by double. So we'll double check that. That would be a lot.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So Brian, any reports for us on the state budget and what it's going to mean for us?
No, although Dottie's comment that,
Yeah.
Dottie's comment that this could backfill loss of state revenue is not a promising statement. Hopefully, considering the state revenues are strong right now, it would shock me if they did a substantial reduction in municipal aid, asking cities and towns to cover ARP, use ARP to cover that. So that was Senator Pearson, Chairman Pearson of the Senate Finance Committee. I was testifying on another bill yesterday, kind of joked about that as well. I thought it was a joke, but now Dottie's comment makes me worried that it may not be a joke. So we're going to do some checking on that and emphasize that we do not think that there should be any reductions in municipal aid because of this.
Thank you, Brian. Glad you caught that. I wasn't the only one that heard that. State's forecasting what? 500,000, right? What did I hear? 500.
Just over 450, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, just remember, Brian, that many of us have passed tax resolutions with the state specified tax rate for motor vehicles, for example, irrespective of real estate taxes. So once again, we're done in May. They're done in who knows when. Early July, do you think, Brian, or do you think it'll get it done this month?
I hope for my own mental sanity, I hope they get it done this month because I'm not going to make it much longer.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll be back on 13 days from now. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And thank Dottie when you see her, Brian.
Will do. Thank you all.
Thank you.
You all.